You may recognize her. She's a famous actress and producer there in Hollywood. Actress Dianne Keaton has now died at the age of 79.
She was famous for her roles in Annie Hall in The Godfather and Something's Gotta Give.
The world froze in disbelief when news broke that Dianne Keaton had passed away on October 11th, 2025. Her quiet departure, after years of struggling with relentless illness, sent ripples across Hollywood. But what truly stunned everyone wasn't just her passing. It was Al Pacino's emotional reaction, the man who had shared 15 years of unforgettable on-screen chemistry with her. Al Pacino was devastated. He broke down in tears and confessed, "I will regret for the rest of my life not marrying Dianne. She was the greatest love of my life." He remembered when Dianne once told him, "Marry me or we break up," and how he had chosen to walk away. Now, that decision haunts him deeply, a regret so heavy it kept him from attending her funeral. Instead, Pacino chose to grieve privately, surrounding himself with memories, old photos, handwritten letters, and tiny gifts that once meant everything. Each item felt like a whisper from Dianne herself, reminding him she was never truly gone. But what happened at Dianne's funeral left everyone heartbroken. Who came to say their last goodbye? Let's step into that fateful morning in Los Angeles, October 11th, 2025. The day began calm and golden, sunlight dancing through the tall trees onto the driveway of the mansion Dianne called her private sanctuary of imagination. It was peaceful as always, until that peace shattered in an instant. At exactly 8:08 a.m., emergency dispatch received a chilling call. "Person down." No other details, just 3 cold, heavy words that carried unbearable weight. Rescue 19 rushed toward the address, not knowing they were about to enter the home of a Hollywood legend. When they arrived, the iron gate was still closed, everything eerily quiet. A woman opened the door.
It wasn't a time when people talked about mental health and addiction.
No, none of that. Absolutely not. My career was starting to take off more, and I was gone almost all the time. I lived in New York.
Her face pale with shock, and led them inside. Dianne was found still and silent in the bright reading room, where she used to go over scripts and write her journals. The space was spotless. No struggle, no chaos, just silence that felt impossibly heavy. Paramedics moved quickly, but the calm around her said it all. They carried her out through the same tree-lined street she had driven countless times before. The ambulance rolled away slowly, almost respectfully, as though even the sirens knew to stay quiet. Within hours, the world learned the heartbreaking truth. Dianne Keaton was gone at 79. Her family confirmed a sudden health decline but refused to reveal the cause, keeping her final struggle private. In the following days, journalists and fans tried to piece together fragments of her health story. Her past battles with skin cancer, her struggles with eating disorders, and her increasingly fragile appearance in recent years. Yet nothing confirmed what truly led to that final morning. Everything remained uncertain, like sunlight flickering through the leaves around her beloved home. Beautiful, but broken into shadows. Hollywood was shaken to its core. Directors, co-stars, and friends, from Woody Allen to Nancy Meyers, shared heartfelt tributes, remembering her signature smile, that tilted fedora, and the effortless charm no one could ever copy. But behind every tribute was a haunting silence. Who was the first to find her? Who made that call? And how could it all have happened so suddenly, so quietly? No one knows for sure. We'll explore more about Dianne's health struggles later in the video. But first, let's turn to the farewell that closed an era. Dianne Keaton's funeral. Just days later, her loved ones gathered in a small seaside garden surrounded by ancient olive trees swaying gently in the breeze, as if nature itself was keeping one final promise. Dianne had once written in her memoir about finding peace by the sea, and her family, along with her 2 adopted children, Dexter and Duke.
But didn't you develop bulimia at that time?
That's what it was. It started because somebody said in the dressing room, one of the girls said that there was this thing that you could do in order to lose weight.
Honored that wish. On October 14, 2025, 3 days after her passing, the film industry paused. The icons of Hollywood stood still for a woman who redefined humor, elegance, and strength. Guests arrived quietly, stepping through the wrought iron gate one by one, the air heavy with loss, yet filled with the kind of grace that only Dianne Keaton could leave behind. The air that day felt thick, almost heavy enough to touch, filled with silent grief that words couldn't carry. The first to arrive was Bette Midler, Diane's longtime friend from the First Wives Club. She hid her tear-streaked cheeks behind a gray scarf, her hand tightly clasping Carol Byer Sagers, who had seen Diane's fading strength in those last days. Carol whispered softly, "She never pretended, never competed." She was simply Diane with that mischievous smile. They took their seats in the front row, surrounded not by grand bouquets, but simple white flowers and sprigs of lavender picked from Diane's own garden, a quiet nod to her love for simplicity and realness. There was no orchestra, no fanfare, just an old piano playing the tender tune from Annie Hall, the very melody Diane once called the laughter of my soul. At the heart of it all stood her family, forming a warm, close circle beneath the soft sea breeze. Dexter, her 29-year-old daughter with her mother's eyes, stood first to speak. Her voice trembled, yet every word carried strength. Mom taught us that life is a comedy, sometimes clumsy, sometimes painful, but always worth applauding. Beside her sat Duke, Diane's 25-year-old son, his eyes swollen and red. He held his sister's hand tightly, remembering the afternoons when Diane would wear those eccentric hats, laughing with her golden retriever Reggie. They didn't cry loudly. Instead, they shared little stories, memories full of warmth. They spoke of how Diane adopted them at 50, how she filled her home with books, scripts, and laughter. This wasn't meant to be a show. It was a private goodbye, just as she wanted. Later, Woody Allen arrived quietly, appearing almost ghostly among the wooden chairs. The man who helped create Annie Hall, the film that won Diane her 1978 Oscar, sat alone, cigarette in hand, though he never lit it. When invited to speak, his voice broke slightly. Diane was the embodiment of creativity. She didn't act. She lived, with that self-deprecating humor only true geniuses have. The crowd nodded in deep respect, remembering their complicated but inspiring bond through films like Sleeper and Manhattan. There were no arguments or speeches, just pure admiration for a woman who turned fear into laughter. Francis Ford Coppola entered next, moving slowly, his steps heavy with the memories of the Godfather days. He had cast her as Kay Adams, a role that made cinematic history. Before taking his seat, he embraced Robert De Niro, his longtime colleague, both men visibly emotional. Coppola's voice carried through the simple microphone. Everything about Diane was creativity. De Niro, his eyes red, added softly, "I am deeply saddened and shocked. I cherished her, a kind woman in a chaotic world." They remembered late nights on set, how Diane's laughter kept everyone grounded, and how she always found a way to make even tragic moments feel human. The atmosphere grew stiller, as if everyone was watching the final scene of a classic film. Then came Reese Witherspoon and Goldie Hawn, representing a new generation of women Diane had inspired. They arrived carrying wildflowers from fields Diane once loved. Reese, her voice breaking, said, "She changed how we see women on screen, smart, funny, and completely original." Goldie Hawn, her smile tinged with sadness, clung to Jane Fonda, whispering about their book club gatherings, remembering how Diane always stole the show with her quirky outfits and funny, heartfelt stories. In the back row, Michael Douglas bowed his head, calling her passing heartbreaking and praising her as one of the greatest icons. As the sun began to sink behind the ocean, the ceremony gently transitioned into a celebration of Diane's life. A large screen flickered to life, showing the unforgettable moments that defined her. Diane laughing with Jack Nicholson in Something's Gotta Give, hugging Steve Martin in Father of the Bride, smiling with that effortless grace only she had. Each clip captured a chapter of her journey, from a dreamer girl in Santa Ana to an Oscar-winning actress, director, and mother who never stopped evolving. The crowd watched in silence as Leonardo DiCaprio, sitting toward the back, whispered to a friend, "She was one of a kind, and I was honored to work with her." There were no loud songs, no final speeches, just the soft hum of piano keys floating through the air, blending sorrow with beauty. It felt like Diane was still there, smiling somewhere, just out of sight but never truly gone. Amid all the tributes, the most poignant homage came from Al Pacino, Diane's former lover and longtime collaborator, the man many say was the great love of her life. When the news of Dianne Keaton's passing reached him, friends described his grief as profound, almost haunting, a sorrow that seemed impossible to bear. Their story began in 1971 on the set of The Godfather, where Diane played Kay Adams and Pacino embodied Michael Corleone. Those years were a whirlwind of passion and challenges, leaving an indelible mark on both of them. Now, decades later, regret weighed heavily on Pacino's heart. Close friends recalled him weeping the moment he heard she was gone, hands trembling as he clutched the phone, unable to accept that the woman who had shaped so much of his life was gone forever. He spent hours alone staring at old photographs. There were images of Dianne laughing on set, smiling in Santa Ana, memories carefully preserved in albums, each picture a treasured fragment of a love he couldn't let go of. Pacino never made a public statement about her passing. Instead, friends shared his silent anguish, the pain of not proposing when he could have. Dianne had once said, "Marry me or we break up," and Pacino had walked away. Now, after her death, he understood that chance was gone forever. Friends say he often murmured, "If it's destiny, it's never too late for a second chance." But the truth was, now it truly was. His regret wasn't just personal sorrow. It was a tribute to someone who had brought balance, laughter, and peace into his life. In past interviews, he had confessed, being with Dianne was about a sense of peace and comfort. Those simple joys, her smile, afternoons on set, quiet moments together, became his most precious keepsakes. Pacino chose not to attend Dianne's funeral, saying the pain of stepping through that gate was too intense. Instead, he preserved her memory in his heart, keeping her image untouched by the world or the curious eyes of others. In his mind, Dianne remained vibrant, her mischievous smile, her open heart, the light she carried. She transcended any ritual or farewell. In the days after her death, he pored over old photographs from the Godfather parts 1, 2, and 3, reliving the years they had shared. From grueling shoots to simple everyday moments, Dianne had a magical way of making unforgettable. That unfinished love now lingers as lifelong regret. Pacino opened her old notebooks, flipping through handwritten scripts, jottings in blue ink, and little notes from daily life. One page made him break down completely. "Don't forget to smile, even when the world is against you." He also kept a silver bracelet Dianne gave him for Christmas in 1975. Each time he looked at it, he swore he could hear her mischievous, warm voice echoing in his memory. In 2017, at the AFI Lifetime Achievement Award honoring Dianne, Pacino gave an emotional tribute. "I will love you forever." Now those words resonate even more, a belated farewell that shows just how much Dianne meant to him. To Pacino, Dianne wasn't just a Hollywood icon. She was the greatest love of his life, an irreplaceable part of his soul. And in his heart, she still lives, radiant, indomitable, and whole, just as the world once admired her, a legend in every sense. In her final months, Dianne Keaton faced a fragile and sudden decline in health, leaving friends and fans in shock. Despite her resilience and public charm, Dianne had long struggled with serious medical challenges. Her history included skin cancer and bulimia, battles that shaped much of her life. From the age of 21, she confronted basal cell carcinoma, a hereditary condition that had affected both her father and brother. Around 2014, she underwent 2 surgeries to remove squamous cell carcinoma from her cheek, a challenge that sparked her dedication to sun protection. Friends worried that the long-term effects of these battles may have contributed to her delicate condition, especially in her final weeks when she appeared thin and fragile. Bulimia was another painful chapter. Carol Bayer-Sager, a close friend, revealed that Dianne struggled with the disorder in the 1970s under the intense pressure of Broadway musicals like Hair. She admitted to consuming up to 20,000 calories a day, fried chicken, French fries, and sweets, before purging. Dianne called it an addiction and described it as the lowest point of my life. Weekly therapy helped her recover, though she always considered herself a recovering addict. While it never returned publicly, the disorder left a lasting mental mark, sometimes isolating her and leaving her more vulnerable to health challenges later in life. By early 2025, friends began noticing a troubling decline. Carol met Dianne in Palm Springs after the January wildfires and was stunned by her frailty. Dianne still smiled and joked, but she looked extremely thin and fragile, having stopped daily habits like walks with her beloved golden retriever Reggie, whose photo was her last post on Instagram. An anonymous friend said Dianne didn't want anyone making a fuss, keeping her struggles private so others wouldn't worry. Fans and media began noticing her rare public appearances and pale, exhausted look, sparking concern. Another striking sign came in March 2025 when Dianne sold her dream home in Los Angeles for $29 million. The house, her sanctuary since 2017, symbolized her passion for architecture and her desire for family stability. Friends saw the sale as unusual, a hint that she may have sensed her body weakening, yet chose to face it privately. She had once said she'd live there forever with Dexter and Duke, but reality sometimes demands change, even for someone as independent as Dianne. On the morning of October 11, 2025, at 8:08 a.m., the Los Angeles Fire Department responded to an emergency call at her home. She was transported to the hospital, but tragically did not survive. Dianne Keaton passed away at the age of 79, leaving a void in the hearts of fans, friends, and the entire film industry. Her legacy, from iconic roles to tireless contributions to the arts, will live forever. For years, people also wondered why Dianne never married, despite passionate relationships with incredible men, from Woody Allen to Warren Beatty. Her nearly 15-year love affair with Al Pacino left an unforgettable mark, haunting her and perhaps shaping her choice to remain single. Through love, laughter, and loss, Dianne Keaton remained a woman defined on her own terms, brilliant, independent, and unforgettable. The passionate yet tragic love between Dianne Keaton and Al Pacino didn't just shape her heart, it locked it to one person, leaving her unable to fully open it again in the twilight of her life. When Dianne passed on October 11, 2025, that love story remained an unfinished melody, echoing through Hollywood memory and whispered stories of their years together. Their paths first crossed in 1971 on the set of The Godfather, where Dianne, a rising Broadway star, played Kay Adams, the patient wife of Michael Corleone, portrayed by Pacino. From the very first glance, Dianne was captivated by him, a man with fiery energy and a magnetic presence that seemed to light up every room. She often said Pacino was everything to her, from endless nights of deep conversation to emotion-filled silent moments on set. Their love ignited instantly. During the filming of The Godfather Part 2 in 1974, they found harmony and artistic connection. They strolled the streets of New York hand in hand, as if the entire Hollywood machine were just a backdrop to their private world. Their relationship stretched through the 1970s and 1980s, but it was far from smooth. It was a passionate tango of love, breakups, and reconciliations, like scenes reshot again and again for perfection. Dianne loved Pacino with a full heart, laughing at his jokes, quietly sitting beside him, listening as he analyzed Shakespeare. Pacino, a free-spirited genius obsessed with his career, brought both joy and pain. Dianne once wrote in an unpublished letter later revealed by friends, "He is a lost genius, and I wanted to be his guide." But that freedom also left her craving something Pacino couldn't give, a permanent promise. During those years, Dianne dreamed of a home filled with family and children's laughter, a sanctuary where she could simply be herself, without stage hats or spotlights. She shared these hopes in 1979, imagining a life Pacino could help build. But he, despite loving her deeply, was devoted to his work and unbound lifestyle. On quiet evenings by the fireplace, Dianne would hold his hand, asking softly about the future, only to receive hugs and vague promises. "He loves me, I know, but he can belong to no one," she confided to a close friend, her voice heavy with regret. Those moments became etched into her heart, sweet wounds that never fully healed. The climax of their love arrived during the filming of The Godfather Part 3 in 1990, bringing them back as Michael and Kay. The set was charged with emotion, and Dianne felt as if she were reliving their love. She hoped this would be a turning point, a chance for Pacino to commit and build a future together. But when she issued the ultimatum, "Marry me or we break up," Pacino, though pained, chose to walk away. "I was too young, too busy with work," he later confessed to a friend. With a broken but resilient heart, Dianne decided to end the relationship herself. She wrote in her diary, a line revealed by friends after her passing, "I loved him completely, and that was all I had." That 1990 breakup wasn't just the end of a love affair. It defined Dianne's choice to remain single afterward. Though she had brief relationships and received other proposals, she always declined. "I loved Al with all my heart, and no one can fill that void," she confided, a sentiment that would shadow her life and shape the fiercely independent woman the world admired. Dianne once told a friend that her love with Al Pacino, though passionate, left a haunting mark. Not of loss, but of having given her all and receiving only a partial dream. That love made her wary of commitment, afraid that no other relationship could ever match those years. Instead of marriage, Dianne found solace in motherhood. At age 50, she adopted 2 children, Dexter and Duke, and turned her home into a vibrant world of books, films, and laughter. In a 2019 Guardian interview, she said, "I don't need a man to feel complete. I have my children, and that's my greatest love." Yet friends noticed that Pacino's shadow lingered, not in bitterness, but as a beautiful, bittersweet memory, a reminder of wide-brimmed hats, quirky outfits, and her infectious laughter. When recounting her career and life, it was clear that Dianne left an impressive estate, estimated at around $100 million. Her wealth came from iconic roles like The Godfather, Annie Hall, which earned her the 1977 Oscar, and Something's Gotta Give, along with profits from buying, renovating, and selling historic homes across Southern California. As a lifelong single woman, Dianne planned her estate meticulously, primarily through a family trust to protect Dexter and Duke and honor the values she cherished throughout life. Her film career provided the foundation of her wealth, from blockbuster earnings to royalties on classic works. She also diversified through directing, producing, and writing, including her memoir and books on interior design, like the 2011 release and The House That Pinterest Built in 2017. Real estate, however, remained her largest asset. A prime example, the Brentwood home she purchased in 2009 for $4.7 million, transformed into an architectural gem, and listed in March 2025 for $28.9 million, just months before her passing. Other savvy transactions included homes in Beverly Hills and Pacific Palisades, one sold to Madonna in 1997 for $6.5 million, generating tens of millions in profit and showcasing her unique taste and business acumen. Dianne's diverse portfolio also included cash, stocks, art, photography, and antique furniture. She lived frugally, avoided extravagance, and relied on trusted legal advisors. There were no debts or disputes. The family trust, established in the 1990s shortly after adopting Dexter and Duke, ensured privacy and smooth estate distribution. Most of her estate went to Dexter and Duke, whom she called the greatest love of my life. Dexter, a veterinary technology graduate, shared memories of her privately online, while Duke pursued music with her unwavering support. Beyond family, Dianne allocated a portion of her estate to charity, reflecting her quiet generosity. Her funeral was solemn and intimate, attended by family, close friends, and a few beloved colleagues. Attendees shared memories of Dianne's humor, charm, resilience, and courage in facing illness. Fresh flowers, heartfelt stories, and quiet reflection filled the space, honoring her enormous cinematic legacy and lasting impact on American arts. Al Pacino, her longtime love, delivered a touching tribute, calling Dianne the only one I ever wanted to marry. Dianne Keaton, strong yet fragile, a true icon of art and character, left an indelible mark on everyone who knew her or loved her work. What do you think of Dianne Keaton? Share your thoughts, subscribe for more stories about legendary film figures, and thank you for joining us on this journey to celebrate a legendary life. Thanks for watching Hidden America. If you loved uncovering the untold stories, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what's hiding just around the corner. Stay curious, stay amazed,